The way I was creating myself, the way I was seeing me. Other people wouldn't see me this way. The way I was seeing me was that, oh, I'm creating myself as this is not possible. And so it's really powerful for me to see that, like, oh, I'm creating this entire personality out of it. I just remember standing there and thinking, like, there's his body, but where's his spirit? Because there's something that powers this, that moves and speaks and is animated and expresses. And then when we die, where is the energy? My invitation to everyone listening is listen to it as if it's about you. You know, not a story about me and a nice story about this girl, Rajni, who came on the pod, listen to this about you and listen to it from a place of hearing the gold for you in this conversation and what it illuminates for you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Illuminating Dialogues number 13, where I have the pleasure today of talking to Rajni Ghir. How are you being today?
I'm doing really good. And when you said 13, I was like, oh, I'm going to create that as lucky number 13.
Yeah, it better be a lucky number and break that trend. So to introduce Rajni, for those of you who don't know Rajni, Rajni is, I would describe, as a very brave soul, an entrepreneur for 4 years, and is on a mission. And we can talk about that mission as we progress in this conversation.
Mm.
And actually personally helped me and what it means to serve with love as a coach, and has helped me at the start of my journey. So with that being said, welcome to Illuminating Dialogues. It's really an honor to have you on.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that about how you experience me, for that acknowledgement. It means a lot. And it means more because of the fact that I have consciously been and still am continuing to work on me and who I create myself to be and everything I create as an offshoot of that. And so when you acknowledge that, it's really humbling. And it's very powerful. And I never would have received acknowledgements like this before, because I would have been like, oh, not me. Like, oh, you mean me? Oh, thank you. You know, like I'd be very sort of like timid with accepting that. And so I really wanted to make a point of thanking you for how you create me, how you see me. And I'd also like to acknowledge you. I'd love to acknowledge you in all of the conversations that we've had, in the way that you see your world and the way that you are so inquisitive and curious about what we think reality is, and then playing with that and questioning it. It's very rare. Sometimes we get stuck behind these ideas and limitations of who we think we are and what we think is possible. And I find in every dialogue I've had with you and every conversation we've ever had, it's the openness to, hey, well, what if that's not true? Or what about this? And there's a curiosity there. And I think it's very, very powerful. And I wanted to share that with you because I'm not surprised you've created a podcast called Illuminating Dialogues because of who you're being.
And thank you for sharing this. And for those of the viewers who are watching this and wondering, what does this creation mean? What creating reality? Wondering what the heck's going on? We'll dive into this because this is going to be a conversation that you might have never heard before, this style of conversation. So before we delve into what is reality, how do we create this, your journey, and how we're actually the masters of creating our reality, before we delve into all of that, Illuminating Dialogues is all about having a flow of meaning, journeying to a place that we maybe haven't gone before, both for the speaker and for the listener, and coming away from the dialogue, the flow of meaning, enlightening ourselves and hopefully the listeners as well, that sum is greater than the whole. So with that being said, my first question to you, Rajni, is what lights you up?
Ooh, I really love this question. And I wouldn't have answered it this way if I rewound a year ago or longer. I would have shied away from it. And what I love about this question is that it's it really hits on something in me. And what lights me up is to see other people get lit up, because I'm not willing to negotiate with not being myself. And what I mean by that is a lot of my work as a life coach, as a business coach, is about bringing out the expression of what just wants to come through you in any moment, and having a space for that, and that it's okay. I've worn many social skins and lots of masks over the years, and I used to work in corporate and all sorts of things, different with different people in my world, and always feeling like I needed to be a certain kind of way in certain situations with certain people at certain times, and it was really exhausting. And I'm not the finished article. Like I'm continuing this deeper inner work in myself. But the thing that really lights me up is when I step into this feeling in me of this is what wants to come out. This is what I want to speak. And it's coming from a place of love, not personal judgment or fear or the myriad of other emotions we experience. When I witness that in another person, the feeling is just amazing. When you can see someone being free, that to me lights me up. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life, like what I wanted to do as work. And I came across coaching and I was like, oh my God, this is a job. Like it's possible to like do this and like create a career or a life, like a way of living out of this. Like, oh my God. And what I love so much about it is there's no one way to build and create a life coaching business or business coach, whatever you want to call it. All right. There's no one way. There's no one path. And I think that to me lights me up, because I work with entrepreneurs too in some of my work, and it's like, well, let's bring you to life, because ultimately you're the one who creates everything that the business the business represents. And so that lights me up to see anybody being themselves, allowing themselves to have full permission to just show up however they want to. There's nothing that rivals that for me.
And the full permission, the authenticity, the tone that you're speaking, you can tell the way you're speaking and the way you're just turning up. You've gone through the work, the emotional turmoil, the mental turmoil, and I'm sure if you're open to it, we can speak about that, because I think it's very inspirational for people to hear. And I know you've shared that before. And also we're coming from a similar background, and people who watch this also coming from very similar background, so they will also benefit from this.
Yeah, so hi to all the Punjabis that are listening.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what? I think this relates across the board. This is not just a Punjabi cultural thing. I've spoken to lots and lots of people, and I think this relates in many different ways. And so my invitation to everyone listening is listen to it as if it's about you. Not a story about me and a nice story about this girl, Rajni, who came on the pod, listen to this about you, and listen to it from a place of hearing the gold for you in this conversation, and what it illuminates for you, right? I think that's the whole point. But yeah, growing up, I felt like there was something deeper in me, this ball of energy and this fire that was just like, what do I do with this? And so I'd gone volunteering, and I was in an orphanage in Nepal, and I went away with a few of my friends when I was about 21. And we were in this orphanage with these children, and I had never felt anything like it. This just yearning inside to want to serve, to be with these kids, to spend time with them. And a few of my friends who were there with me were like, one of the days they said, oh, we're going to go out and we're going to do some shopping while we're here. And it was like, my whole body was like, no, I don't want to leave the kids. I want to be here, and I want to maximize my time with them, because there was just this feeling of love. And some of the stories I heard about, what they'd been through growing up, some of the kids had been left in markets by their parents and just left there at the age of 10 years old. it was really heart-wrenching. And I remember as we were leaving after the month, and I couldn't hold back the tears, and I was crying. And one of the boys, I'll never forget this, 13 years old, his name is Santosh, and he came sat next to me and he said, sometimes I miss my friends and family. And he goes, and then I remember that they're in here. And I just remember having this moment of, oh my God, like you're 13 years old. You have this lifetime of wisdom in you. Whoa. And it just opened me up to like, I want to do this work. And I didn't know what that meant. I want to be in these spaces. I want to connect with people. I want to be with humanity. And so after that, I came back and it was, all right, finishing uni, got to find a job, got to do the thing. And it was kind of I call it sort of the prescription, doctor's orders of like, get the job and, get a comfortable wage and an income, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's a lot to be said about, my parents being a generation who came to the UK, really working hard to build what we're standing on today. Like I'm so grateful for my parents and what they have done. And the sacrifices that they made and what they have created as entrepreneurs. My dad is an entrepreneur. He built his business from nothing, and it's so inspiring to see that. And I appreciate it a lot more now. I'm a lot older. But yeah, there was the prescription of like, we want you to have a comfortable life. So go to uni, get the degree, finish the degree, get the good job. Once you got the good job, you get married, get a house, have kids, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And I remember thinking like, yeah, but there's like, this can't just be it. And what came to, the end of that was like, when you retire, you can just enjoy yourself. And it was like, I don't 65 until I'm living and I'm alive. And so there was a resistance in that for me. And so when I started looking for a job, and it was an internal pressure, right? Of like, oh, these are the expectations. I've got to do this. And I'm very grateful for the fact that I worked in corporate for 7 years. I learned so much from that. And what happened was I started working in a corporate job, and every time I got time off, I would be out the country. So I wouldn't just take a day here or there. I'd be like, oh, long weekend, I'm flying to Europe. Oh, I've got 3 weeks off, I'm going to be going to Asia. I would go away. And my thing was I was searching for connection. I was searching for that feeling again that I had when I was with those kids in Nepal. And I just, like nothing, it was short-lived. I'd come back and I'd be in the same thing of this rat race, and I was working crazy hours, and I ended up burning out in 2019, and I was experiencing quite severe anxiety. And I went to the GP one day and they said, well, you're depressed. And I was like, what? And it was like this shock, everything fell apart. And they're like, yeah, you need to stop. And they signed me off work, and they gave me some medications. And I went home and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was asking myself all these questions. And I remember having the medication on my bed. And I remember it wasn't even a mental thought. It was a feeling, like a sense internally. And I just put the medication in the drawer, and I was like, I'm not going to take it. Not because I think medication is bad, but because something else was telling me, hey, if this has been created, because you weren't always this way, like there must be another way to uncreate. Like there must be a way to create something different. And so I ended up having 4 months off work in 2019. I was signed off sick. And that was a huge soul-searching moment for me. Kind of asking myself the bigger questions of what the hell's the point? There was what the heck's the point? And then why am I doing all of this? What's it all for? And really seeing like the answers weren't outside of me. The answers weren't in the job or in how much money I earned and in how, whether I'm married or not, or the answers weren't in the prescription. And so it's kind of like with the prescription, it's like the medication's great for the symptoms, but what's the real stuff underlying? Like, how am I creating my reality?
And this is powerful for people to hear, because this story everybody can relate to. A lot of people watching can be sitting in the job, and it's not necessarily bad or good. It's the meaning that we associate for this. But you touched on something very interesting, was there's something inside of you There's this life force. There's this spirit almost that you, and it's different in everybody, but almost you telling your story and being vulnerable and being confident and expressing in this way allows to others for that permission. So people listening could be hearing this right now, thinking, hey, I'm that person sitting. I mean, I'm working in corporate right now, but I'm finding ways to do my coaching, to do my meditation. But there might be someone sitting there who has that feeling. And I know I've been coaching people on this as well, having that feeling inside, but they're feeling they're killing themselves inside. But like you said, there's many masks, there's many expectations. But over here, you're telling your story. And this is what we talked about creating reality at the start. By telling your story, you're breaking that person's reality and you're saying, hey, this other way is possible. So I just wanted to just dive in there and just for the listeners say, it's possible to change our reality there. So as you were going on with your story, what then, like you said, what made you go inside you? Because it was very easy to get a pill or go on that line. What made you go inside and say, and shift and say, hey, I'm the captain of my soul. I can start shaping my reality. What was that shift for you?
It's such a great question. And the true honest answer is, I have no idea. And it's so freeing to be able to say that and be like, I don't have to have all the answers. And reflecting on that, it didn't feel like a realization of something I didn't already know. It was like I already knew it in some way, shape, or form. But it almost felt like there had just been this like, I've got to find it. And what I'm pointing to in the I already know thing is like, I often use the word resonance, right? And resonance is not, oh, it's the first time I'm hearing this and I resonate with, like, no, it's a remembering. And I think that we all have this. We all have this spirit, if you want to call it spirit. And, my husband's granddad, he was 100 years old on the 4th of Jan. And he passed away, not so long ago. And we went to the funeral, and in our culture, you often have an open coffin and you see the person, and I just remember standing there and thinking like, there's his body, but where's his spirit? Because there's something that powers this, that moves and speaks and is animated and expresses. And then when we die, where is the energy? Right? Because the body starts to decay. There's something that keeps this alive, and we live in this. And I think the resonance for me wasn't a particular moment I could say, oh, well, that was it. That was the realization, and that opened all the doors. There was just this resonance of, and almost like a sense. You can call it wisdom if you want. You can call it God. I don't want to put connotations on what this is. Energy, life force. People have lots of different names for it. But to me, it was like it wasn't with words. It was the sense and the feeling that I had that was beyond sort of like a feeling of anxiety or a momentary feeling of depression or a momentary feeling of this, that, and the other. It was like a deep knowing of like, I'm going to be okay. Like faith, if you want to call it that. That, yeah, there's something else here. There's something else available. And so part of what created I guess the opening, and for me to inquire in that, I mean, I did have 4 months off work. You don't need to be signed off sick from work to create space for yourself. But it was almost as though, and I'll put some context around it. On the day I was taken to the doctor by my parents, I was going into work. I was like, I'm off, I'm out of here. And my dad literally grabbed me and pulled me back by my bag and was like, you're not going anywhere. And I was like, yes, I am. And he's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. We're going to the doctor. And to me, those are those moments that look like coincidences, but I don't think that they are. I don't believe in coincidence.
Mm.
I believe in being guided by the divine, like the divine hand. And that there's always been this divine hand pointing me back into myself, pointing me back, pointing me back, pointing. And I just kept missing the signals and kept missing the lesson until literally the universe was like, we're done. Like, this is it. 4 months signed off work. There's your space to go inward. And so, and there's this thing in the University of Santa Monica that one of my coaches, Ankush Jain, pointed towards. And he said, you know, in the university, they teach this thing about stackers. And they said the universe will send you a lesson. And if you don't really see the lesson or you don't learn the lesson, right, it will just stack another one on top. And so I had moments where anxiety was being a gift for me. It was like, hey, wake up, we need to stop, we need to pause, we need to slow down. Like, and it happened for years until it was like, no, now we're putting you into deep rest. You can call it depression, whatever, so that you can look. And so I don't think it was a particular moment. I think there was just a resonance around returning back to things I already know. And then being there.
Returning back to that natural essence or that natural state. And in previous podcast episode, we were actually talking to a doctor, Dr. Sujata, on Ayurveda, and we realized that our natural state, our natural essence is our natural state of being. But like you were saying at the start, certain masking, certain modes of other people around us, certain social structures make us forget or maybe prioritize other ways of being. So I think what would be really helpful for people listening to this is, especially what you do now, very experienced as a coach, as an entrepreneur, helping people shape their reality and drag out their essence or light up their essence. How do you go about starting this fire? What is it that you're noticing in somebody to take them from not knowing this light to sparking this light inside?
So I think there's a couple of things I can touch on here. And honestly, we could talk about this for hours and hours. You know, I can give you the highlights reel if you like, because I know we're going to be talking about this topic. But again, it's something that we could talk about this in depth literally for hours. And I don't have a problem with that, as you can tell. But the thing that really I look for in myself, and I also hear when I'm listening to other people expressing themselves, is that language is a symptom of who we are being. Right? Language is a symptom of who we're being. So I'll give you an example. So I have this thing, if you like, that's called a document. Now, the document is a set of declarations. They're not affirmations. They're declarations of who I choose to create myself to be every day. And to create the document has taken a lot deeper inner work. It's a journey I've gone on with another coach of mine who's incredible. And we've created these declarations around who I create myself to be. And so who I used to believe I was this fixed personality. I am an anxious person, right? Like, I am anxious. And then all of my reality was then I have to deal with that. I got to deal with anxiety. It's something I have, something I am. It's not even something I have, it's something I am. So now I've got to deal with myself as an anxious person. And there's a lot of work involved with that. And one of the things I started seeing was that everybody has a document. Unconsciously or consciously, we all have an idea of who we think we are. And some of the ones I had, and you may, listening to this, relate to this, Jhoty, you might relate to this, you know, like, again, some of these still come up for me. I'm not the finished article by any means, is I'm not good enough. I am that this will never change, right? I'm an anxious person. I am that I used to have this one. I am that I cannot create financial abundance. Right? Really difficult when that's where I'm coming from to create a successful business as an entrepreneur, right? And it was full of judgment. The way I was creating myself, the way I was seeing me Other people wouldn't see me this way. The way I see me was that, oh, I'm creating myself as this is not possible. And so it's really powerful for me to see that, like, oh, I'm creating this entire personality out of it. And I was looking for the stacks of evidence that were like, that's true, that's true. Because people will say, yeah, but then I've had anxiety, right? And I have this and I have that. And I haven't created financial abundance up to now. So that the evidence shows this, right? And so it looks really, really convincing. And what I started to see was that the way I judge myself creates my reality. Because if I judge myself as, hey, I'm not good enough, which is what I did for years. It took me 5 years to quit my job. 5. And so there was a lot of turmoil in that, really. But where I kept saying, hey, I'm not good enough to get another job. No one else is going to hire me. These guys, they think I'm really good. I don't know what they're on, but for some reason they think I'm really good. I'm not going to be able to wing it anywhere else. I figured out the way to wing it here. When I come from that place, what do you think I'm going to do? How do you think I'm going to operate and show up in my workplace or anywhere in my life?
And this is so powerful because what we're choosing here is we have a choice. We have a choice. And for those people listening, and this may sound very philosophical, but it's really not. Like, listening to this right now, what are you commenting on your mind? You know, who's listening? Who's making the comments? Who's the one choosing? You know, this is very real. But we're so close to these thoughts. We're so close to these emotions that we can't make the choice. So how do we make the distance?
Yeah, beautiful question. So, it's really funny because if I was listening to this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, it's okay for them to say.
Yeah.
And I want to speak that out because that's an example of the voice. That's an example of the way we create ourselves, right? And the way I would kind of talk about this, the language that I'd use is it's all the ways I judge myself. All the ways I judge myself. And I could read off the pages and pages of the stuff, my old document, my old operating system, right? And these are true judgments, and I may be saying them flippantly now, but when I was actually speaking these out, when I had uncovered them all, I was crying, shaking. I couldn't get through this list. I'm fat and ugly. And that I cannot create financial abundance. I am not a present wife. I'm not a good daughter. The list was extensive, really long, and it was very confronting because what it was confronting was a version of me that I was walking around at trying to mask. You know, having a mask is exhausted. This is what I was trying to hide because this is what I believed about me at my core. So I could stand up there and go, hey, I'm really confident or whatever, but underneath all of that was all the judgment. And so for me, what the real work here is in the way that I love myself. And again, this is not some ethereal out there thing. It's really practical.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like to get across to the audience, that your bravery and the complete honesty of just holding that up with yourself. And it's not an easy thing to do, to catch these things that are always flying away, to be like, hey, this is like part of me starting this podcast, or part of me starting my YouTube channel was realizing, especially even my first episodes, was like putting off for many months and like, I am not confident to speak in front of camera. I am not confident to be in front of a live stream. Okay, I realize I'm not confident. I realize I am not this. But then I can create myself to be like, okay, there's a version of me that's not confident, but there's also a version of me that can be confident. How do I become this? I just be this. I turn on the camera and I just practice.
Right. And I love this, the P word, practice. This is what I talk to so many of my clients about. And it's a reminder for me too, is people will say, well, yeah, but like I've got this and I've got that, and there's all these judgments. And it's like, this isn't about just saying, okay, well, now I'm just going to stop judging myself and I'm just going to now believe this stuff about myself. No, it's an act of creation. And there's a difference between just one time saying these things and then that's it. And being like, okay, cool. I created myself like that in 2010 on the 10th of November. And I haven't revisited that for the last 14 years, right? Like what we're getting towards is like, it's the daily practice, not even daily. Sometimes it's moment to moment. So I will catch myself speaking to myself in certain ways. I used to do this thing when I drop something or mess up a calendar invite and I'll be like, idiot. And then I stopped it because I was like, oh, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to keep calling myself that because I'm creating it. And so there's these really practical ways that we can change the way we create ourselves. And I'd even go as far as, the thing around, look, how we create, because we're always creating. We're never not creating. It's happening all of the time. Even your mind is creating this conversation right now as you listen to it. Whether you have a judgment about it, whether you're open about it, whether you're intrigued, that's all creation. And so, like, this thing around, I'm not confident to get in front of a camera and put my headphones on and interview somebody, right? Like, well, maybe you don't need to be, right? A lot of people think I've got to deal with everything that's going on before I can even do this. It's, well, sometimes just the act of beginning something, starting, is what creates you as that. That's it. And it's the simplicity of this that I love, which was I didn't have to cure myself, and say, well, I'm not depressed anymore in order for me to go for what I wanted to go for, which was I found coaching at the time and I just quit my job. I don't recommend people do that, right? Everybody's different. And for me, it was like, I have no idea I'm going to create this coaching business. I just know that I'm going to create it. And so I quit and I started this journey 4 years ago. And it's been a lot of investment, time, energy, money to build this thing. But what I see in this is the biggest shift for me in transformation has been in daily self-forgiveness. Daily forgiveness of myself, even when I'm judging someone else, because I do that too, right? Like I might be judging someone. It's like, oh, catch it. Can I forgive myself for that? And some of the ways I do that is I'll have like touchstones of things to remind me. Wow. So again, this is not an ethereal thing of being holier than thou and sitting on a mountain meditating. It's really coming back down to like, oh, I have a picture of me when I'm 10 years old. And I look at that photograph and I'm like, would I judge her for the way she's talking to herself right now? No, I just forgive her. I wouldn't judge myself for judging myself. I just forgive myself. And the power of forgiveness, because forgiveness is not a doing thing. We can say I forgive myself, but underneath that is the feeling in it. It's the real deep feeling of I've got you. It's okay.
And I think that feeling that you just touched on can so relatable, because I know from speaking to other clients and from sitting in an office environment that people can be thinking, I want to escape, I want to escape, I want to escape. But the feeling beyond the thought, the stomach clenching, the stomach knots. I had clients come to me saying, I have knots in my stomach. And that's a very real thing, because when we're validating our feeling, this is an inner child element. This is, like you were saying, the picture on the picture of you when you were 5 or 10 years old. This is related to our physiology, to our actual, person. And when we're cutting ourselves off like that, when we're not aligned with ourselves, we're closing really a part of ourselves off. We're almost killing a part of ourselves, or not watering it or letting it grow. So this masking, like you were saying, was just blocking that. And so for people who don't really know what masking is, or feeling a bit drained from this, where does this masking come from? Why did you mask? Why do people mask? And how can we stop ourselves from masking?
So I have a bit of a take on this that it may not be very popular. But I'm going to go with it anyway, because it's been super helpful for me. Is that maybe we don't always need to know why. Because why can be, and I'm not making the why question or the why, inquiry wrong. But what I've seen is that for me too, it's like, well, why am I like this? Why am I so anxious? Why am I depressed? And that to me wasn't a powerful question. It didn't open any possibility up for me. It had me looking in the direction of what's wrong with me.
Mm.
And actually, when I dropped why, and I jokingly would say this to my clients, and we'd be like, all right, cool. Let's not be why holes today. Right? And it's not taking that off the table. Like sometimes we do go into that. Sometimes it's important to. And at other times it's, okay, well, what's another powerful question we can ask ourselves? Right? Do we need to go there? Really? Or can we forgive ourselves for, having that thinking about it? Having these thoughts right now, the way you're creating yourself, the way you're judging yourself, can we forgive that? Can we get into the feeling of forgiveness of it and let it pass? And I think, it's you said something about watering, and I liken it to a garden. Like let's look at the garden, and we've gone into the garden, there's weeds everywhere. Now let's say the weeds represent the way that we judge ourselves. I'm not good enough, I'm an imposter, I'm a this, I'm a that. Now slowly what we want to do is we want to start pulling the weeds out one by one. We want to cultivate the garden. Now it doesn't mean the weeds are going to stop growing, but I want to tend to the garden often, and I want to keep pulling the weeds out, and I want to cultivate and water the plants and the flowers and the trees of love. Right? So my current document, the first line of it is, I am complete. For me, that's a coming from love and forgiveness. It's not some random affirmation I've just slapped on top of a judgment I have about myself. It's I've gone in and I've forgiven myself. Now I'm coming from the place, and every time I speak, I am complete. It's me forgiving the momentary thought that passes by judging me. So rather than us having to go into the why all the time to figure it out, is, hey, that's okay. We can let it go. I don't have to know why the weed is growing. I can pull it out. I can nurture something else. I don't have to keep watering that.
That's powerful. And, I'm just going back to a person, for example, listening to this, and maybe they do want some sense of empowerment. Maybe they're feeling disempowered. Maybe they're feeling in a victim state. When we're creating our reality and we're saying, and we believe and we feel that I am complete, I am whole, I am powerful, this is a great place to get to. But I always remember Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. How do we manage because it's a powerful thing to create ourselves. How do we manage where we're not going off the rails with power, where we're not coming from a place of egoicness, like you said at the start, that because I think a lot of people do want this empowerment, but they're scared of their power. I know we've had this conversation as well. They're scared of who they can be. So how does one root themselves in that truth, but at the same time reach for the stars and develop that power? It's such a interesting question as one begins to create themselves.
I really love this question and this exploration. I think it's brilliant. Because the thing that I actually want to share a story. I think it'd be way more powerful for me to do that. I was in like a group, let's say a group program type thing. And somebody shared something in the group program that I thought was a conversation between me and them that was confidential. And they named me. And I remember having this moment of my feeling like, that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And how could they do that? Right. And then creating judgment on them and judging myself, and then feeling really small and like, people are going to know this about me. And then I really took a moment to be like, no, I'm not going there. And it was in that moment I was, I'm not going there. I'm going to keep coming from love. And so if I don't come from love right now, I'm going to miss everything that's shared in this now. I'm going to miss it all because I'm judging. I'm busy judging over here, busy judging myself for being embarrassed. busy judging them for what they did, all this stuff. Anyway, I dropped it. And a few days later, after we'd finished everything up, and I went back to them and I said, hey, this is what was going on for me. And I really wanted to drop it in that moment, but I also just wanted to let you know. And what came out of my mouth, I wasn't expecting it, was because I don't want to have an ego that can be bruised. I don't want to have this identity that needs defending at every turn. And so what comes up for me in your question is that, well, the moment I'm not coming from love, really, because I could be seeking validation, happens. I could be seeking to be liked, right? I want to see if these people think that what I've said is good. I could be, I don't want to say that because it might come across a certain kind of way. Like all of those ways are ways of diminishing power. They're like power leakages, right? But the way that I look at power isn't ego-based power that I need to defend myself and I'm right and you're wrong, right? Or this person's cleverer than me and or they're up here and I'm down there. They're all examples of ego that I'm jostling for position over somebody. Like the thing that I like to ground myself in every day is like, well, no, I'm an eternal student. I'm not better than. And yes, the ego likes to come into play and dance around and be like, oh, yeah, but you did this, or oh, you're not as good as them. Right. And it's this really powerful thing around awareness is, do I choose to consciously create myself and keep coming back to grounding myself in love and dropping this idea that I'm whoever I am compared to everybody else? Or am I letting myself go on the default and just react to what the mind is just spewing out and creating? And so what I've found very powerful for myself is when I continuously ground myself in love, it's to accept that there is an ego. And I'm not going to be getting rid of it, right? Yeah, it's going to show up. And this is where, if I can be humble enough in forgiving myself for judging myself, for having an ego, for all of these things, then it really frees up a lot of judgment I have on other people. Like it just falls away. And I think the work starts with ourselves. Of we know when we're coming from a place of, hey, I'm lording my power over or jostling to get position, versus when it's like, hey, it's not about that kind of power. And I think I see power very differently. I use the context of the word for me is very different. Is the way that I see power is that this is a body. And I was talking about my husband's granddad, Ananna, is this is a body and it houses spirit or energy or whatever you want to call it, God. And so the power is when I clear this vessel of personal judgment, when I get into forgiveness of all of the stuff that's going on, then what comes through is more channeled. It's more powerful. It's a more powerful expression because it's in alignment, as opposed to it being filtered through 17 different masks, or the way that I should speak right now, or the way I need to look. All right. So I'm not saying I'm free of ego. I'm not. It's this practice daily of coming back to forgiveness and love and bringing myself back into that place of, I'm human and I make mistakes. And there was another entrepreneur who I heard speak recently, and he said, I have a mistake quota. Every day I give myself 50 mistakes I can make. And I love that, because it's like, hey, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to be this all-powerful, perfect specimen of a human. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make space for that. Right. And I think for me, one of the ways that I bring myself back down to earth is I will speak about my mistakes openly. It's been a practice. I will share stuff that I'm vulnerable about, or things that's just a way that I like to play that game. It's not for me to tell you how to ground yourself. It's for all of us to find our own way.
And I think what I'm taking from that is, and as well, thank you for sharing, because it just demonstrates that level of humility and awareness and just the ability to accept like shame, any blame we might give ourselves. And like you're completely right. Sometimes when I'm like recording a video or doing live stream, I'll watch it back and I'm like, who am I doing this for? Is it for myself or the other person? But then the ability to be like, that's okay. That's okay. And like when we do that with ourselves, yeah, we do get better at doing that and with other people. Because often I find, and the reason I ask the power question is often people can look to chase power or look to chase success. But actually, it's the other way about. Is when we sort of go down a bit, then we become more of the power through love, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, and it really does, and which is why I love the work that I do. Call it work, because I love it so much. But it's why I love it is because it's about the other person. It's not
Mm,
about me. And if I share stuff about me, like in the context of our conversation now, I'm sharing it because I want to serve, I
mm,
want to help people. And it's kind of coming back to this place of like, if it's not about me, and I'll be really honest, I used to judge myself. One of the judgments I had of me is I'm self-obsessed because I was obsessed with the self I had created. How does she look? What is she speaking? Is this acceptable? Right? And I forgave myself and continue to forgive myself
mm,
when I'm becoming self-obsessed and leaning into, well, actually, like I wanna speak to and create with the power that comes through me.
mm,
And I want to create with that. I want to have fun with that. I want to play with that. And when it stops being about me, it's like it doesn't matter how my face looks, right? Or how I've spoken today, or the sentences and the way I phrased them. I'm okay with that. And it's continuously being in forgiveness of myself. And so yeah, I think that um when it stops being about just me, and we start to create and foster this culture of we,
mm.
everything for me shifted.
Yeah, and I think that's powerful and a finer, subtle point, and for people to get in a practical way. I like to call it censorship. So, like before I
Mm,
talk, it's like, is that okay with my religion? Is that okay with my family? Did I say something bad? And almost like, am I doing something moral? And that's okay to a point. And we can often trick ourselves to thinking, I'm doing this for the greater good. But actually, what it comes to is that, like you said, we're coming too much into this me standpoint rather than just let it flow. And whatever comes out, be a bit self acceptance there and hold ourselves in this way. So we're
mm,
not having this self censorship almost. But at the same time, we're not trying to prove something. And that's a very subtle point. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that because that's quite a subtle thing to get to.
mm. Yeah, it's a great distinction you've drawn out there. Really
Yeah.
great.
And so we talked about power, which I find fascinating. I think it can help a lot of people, especially in the Punjabi community, who often, like you said at the start, the parents and all my grandparents came to set up a good life, and they're also feeling judgment to be like, I need to work in this certain way to do the honor of the previous generations. But now you're flipping the script, right? But now also going into the money aspect. So I know that I've done the video of my grandparents on this channel, arriving here, setting up the shop, working in the buses, and money becomes very scarcity, right? But we don't have to delve into the past and everything. I just
Mm,
want to set the scene for people
mm,
watching how you can see the scarcity coming, wherever family background you're coming from. That the men and women both have to work. The children often also have to work in the shop, and so every penny really counts here. So now, when we're getting to a certain standpoint and we're getting to a point saying, okay, I only want to earn so much. I only need to earn so much. And like you said, money is bad. But on the other side of the script is, I want to earn money, yes, to have nice things and do good things for myself, but to serve people, to build a vehicle for transformation, to create things in reality. I know it's a long story, but what were the common things that you found in yourself and people around the money point of view and viewing money? And yeah, maybe we can stay with that before like changing. How did you transform this? What were the common blocks that you found around money?
Well, I'll say this, we can make it a bit interactive right now, is whoever's listening to this is take a
Yeah,
moment, write down, if in a notepad or
yeah.
on your phone, write down money is dot dot dot. And now I want you to answer the question 7 times. If you need to pause this, answer and complete the sentence 7 times and see what comes up for you. Very often what comes up for you is the way you create money. So pause now and do that, and then play again, and we're going to carry on the conversation. To me, I had a whole thing of, well, money is bad, money is greed, money is ego, money is evil. All right, I had loads of stuff on money. And another one was like, well, I only need enough to lead a comfortable life. Right? All sorts of things. Well, I can't create money on my own now that I've left this job. How am I going to create money by myself? Oh my God. All right. I had all of this thinking around money. And what I've witnessed and experienced myself is money on its own doesn't mean anything. It's got no inherent meaning. It's like me talking about Vaseline. Being like, oh my God, Vaseline's evil. Like Vaseline is terrible. Vaseline, let me tell you about Vaseline, right? It doesn't have any inherent meaning. I have to put meaning on it. So I like Vaseline. Moisturizes my lips when they're a bit dry, right? Like I've made that up. Other people will swear by it. Other people will say it's terrible. It's kind of the same thing with money, right? It has no inherent meaning. It's just a number on a screen. And yeah, this paper that is printed, we put inherent meaning on everything. Money is one of those things. It's an object, and we create it as good, bad, whatever we want to create it as. And that is what defines our relationship to it.
People watching this might be like, this sounds great. Wait a minute, I have to pay the bills. Oh no, I have to feed the kids. But notice what's coming up from the emotions behind talking. And like you said, like living a comfortable life and living like this, the emotion, there can be two emotions behind this. One is like, I must live a comfortable life, and again the sort of strict protocol we put on ourselves. But the other is almost like a detached point of view. Like I need this amount of money to live a comfortable life, but I also choose not to do this. So there's that subtle difference. I guess there's a subtle difference there between the detachment, where you're okay with a certain level of income, but you choose not to have that certain of income.
And I think, this thing around, I need to pay the bills, and I've got, yeah, absolutely. I'm not making money bad anymore. And I'm also not making wanting money bad, right? That's another thing. It's like, if you want too much money, you're bad, but I had that too, right? And it's just interesting to witness how we create it, because I like money, right? Like I was like, I like to go shopping, and I like to buy things for my home, and I like to spend my money on certain things because I enjoy it. And at the same time, I don't want to be beholden to it. When I become beholden to money, and you could put anything in that sentence, it doesn't have to be money, it could be anything, all right? But I become beholden to that, then it's like I'm a slave to it now, right? I want to create money. I want to use it. It's a tool. And so this whole thing around, if I need to create money to pay the bills, I say to entrepreneurs or people that want to build businesses, whether that's in a coaching business, anything, is, hey, take care of that stuff first. Come into your business where you don't need money, because it might take you 3 to 5 or 6 years to build a profitable business, right? So if you expect it to give you money, right, there's a thing around, I'm beholden to that. I need the money off of it. The energy at which you come in to create stuff is really needy, right? It's like if I come into a coaching business and it's like, well, I need the money, and it's about me. Remember we talked about it. Now I don't care about you anymore. It's like, even if I've got the intention of wanting to be serving and loving, now I've got this thing in the game where I need your money, right? Like, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel aligned. And so this whole thing is, I say to you, like, take care of that stuff, right? If you have to work a part-time job, whatever, take care of the bills. Like, take care of the needs that you have, basic needs as a human being. Take care of that. Whatever your rich life is, right? You might want to spend money on this or that. Someone else might want to spend it on a lifetime supply of Vaseline. I don't know, but take care of that. And then come into your business or whatever you're creating where you don't need anything, right? Because the richest or wealthiest person in the world is the one who needs nothing. If I don't need anything from you, Jyothi, amazing. I can be here with you. Now, if I need something from you, money or otherwise, now the mind's going, well, how do I get that off him? How do I get him to do the thing? And I'm not really being here with you. It's not serving. And so I'm putting it in the context of this from a business perspective. But again, it's like I don't want to be a slave to things that are tools. When I'm beholden to technology, I don't want to be a slave to technology. I want to use it as a tool. People will be like on their phone scrolling on Facebook. Oh, I've been in the scroll hole for 4.5 hours. Oh my God, my life is going down the scroll hole. Right? I don't want to be beholden to that. I want to be really carefully forgiving myself for that ever being a story or a way I showed up, and then recreating it from now, choosing.
And this is such a special concept because people can often say, hey, don't eat so much chocolate, don't use your Instagram so much. But this is going a level deeper to saying, what is my relationship with reality, essentially? And taking it back to shaping your reality, what are some really practical ways in which you've seen people demonstrate this relationship? And then how did they get it to the standpoint of noticing, I'm actually coming from a limited or scarcity standpoint, and now this shift has happened, and now I don't need this, and I'm operating from a different place.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. The thing I'd say is the most important as a starting point is how open are we? Because if I had, I don't know, I'm not good enough as my filter for listening to this, and I'm really, that's it. That I'm not good enough. Anything Rajni's talking about, that's for them, all right, not for me. Now, anything I've spoken, all of the gold is just going to bounce off of that. And so I can't do anything or help anyone, including myself, right, when I'm closed or when they're closed off. And so I think the biggest starting point, and I can give a practical way of creating this distinction, which I think is really powerful. It's a distinction, I believe, that Steve Hardison created. I mean, I don't know if Steve created it but that's the where I know it comes from. Steve Hardison, if you don't know, he's known as the ultimate coach. You can find him on his website. There's a book that has been written about Steve by his wife and one of his clients, Alan D. Thompson. And it's known as the book of being. And this book is not about anyone else. It's about you. The book has literally been written about you. And if you were to read this book, you'd have a transformational shift. And the distinction I'm about to share is anyone you encounter or any book you encounter, anything you pick up to read in the direction of what we're talking about would have a phenomenal transformational effect on you if you were to bring this distinction to it. So if, I don't know, you imagined that there was someone walking into the room that you're in right now, and they sit with you, and you literally are like, oh, this person is so annoying. Like, oh God, I can't stand them, right? And they start speaking to you, right? You want to check with how are you going to receive anything they're saying? Now, I'm guessing the way that you're going to receive what they're saying of, oh my God, every time this person speaks, they do my head in, or everything they say is just a load of rubbish. Everything they say is going to bounce off of that. You're not going to hear it, right? Because you're creating them in a way where it's like they're really annoying. And I want you to think of that person in your world, right? So you can write it down, whatever it might be. I want you to think of them. So it might be someone from the past that's not in your life right now. It may be someone who is in your life right now that you somebody at work maybe. Could be your boss. Who knows, right? You just find them wildly annoying. I want you to think about them, and I want you to think of the kind of listening that you have for them, right? Not don't judge yourself for it. Just inquire about that kind of listening you've got. Now, you don't have to say who, Jhoty, but can you think of somebody?
Okay.
Okay, so you have someone, right? Okay. Now I want you to think about somebody else who's going to walk into the room with you right now, and you may want to imagine this in your mind's eye. This person could be dead or alive. They could be from the past. They could be in your life right now. That if they were to, they could be famous, a role model you've never actually physically met. They were to walk into the room and start speaking to you right now, that you would be like hanging off of every word. Like it doesn't even matter what they say. You are going to listen to everything. You're going to be listening for the one sentence they say that could change your entire life. You're going to be listening for all of the gold. Can you think of someone, Jhoty?
Yeah.
All right. And so same for the listeners. You can think of someone, write down their name. Now I want you to see something. All right. Person one, you have that kind of listening. And person two, this highest listening you have this kind of listening. Now, who can you bring these kinds of listening to?
So the deeper level of listening to person number one.
Well, you could bring person number one kind of listening, which is this really just I'm not interested kind of listening. We can call it BS listening, right? You can bring that listening to anyone. Now, if we look at the highest kind of listening, this second person that we've been imagining in your life, that kind of listening, who can you bring that to?
To everyone.
Right. And imagine your life and your experience of life if you brought that kind of listening to everyone. What would happen?
And as you say this, it's like, again, you have the choice. It's being in that non-reactive state. You're able to listen to someone at that deepest level. And it's not just like a transactional thing of, hey, I want to employ listening level 2 to everybody like a robot. But it's like, let me go a step further and choose to feel the human being, or to notice I'm being reactive here. Let's switch. And I've been reading a lot of Joe Dispenza lately, of course, coming from Sikh background, Indian background. We know all about this mind in the Maya format, for those who know this terminology. If you're coming from the Western world, people talking about matrix or programming. Anyhow, the brain creates reality in scripts. And just noticing, hey, there's a level 1 listening script going on. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I catch myself all the time being in that reactive state. And again, not having that shame that you mentioned, not having that guilt that you mentioned, but saying that's okay if I'm in level 1 listening. That's okay. But I would like to be on level 2.
Right.
So it was really a beautiful analogy.
Yeah. And so the powerful invitation here is that we can bring that second listening to everyone. And it's, you don't even, you can bring it now. And don't trust me. Don't just be like, oh yeah, she's saying that. Like, test it out. Go test it in your life. And have this thing around being able to reset, the practice of it, not being perfect at it, but the practice of it. And see, and I love what you said, it's like, look for the humanity in the person in front of you. As much as you look for the humanity in yourself, look for it in other people, especially those people that you were like, oh man, that person is this. And like they're our greatest teachers. That's your greatest teacher, right? The person who you honestly like, who are not your boss, maybe it's your boss or somebody, they're my greatest teacher. The person that I have judgment of, what perfect. That's the greatest mirror I have. To be like, what's the work I have on me? Where am I judging myself for the way I'm judging them? Or the thing I'm judging them for? And I think this is the biggest thing I can invite everyone into is no matter what you read or listen to, because there's so much out there. There's amazing things out there. Like you said, Joe Dispenza, there's Amy Johnson. I could reel off Michael Singer, all of these people looking in this direction that are doing fantastic work. And my invitation to everyone listening is bring your highest listening to everything that you read. So it's more important to read, not for more information of things that you can dispute or refute or be like, well, that's wrong, or that's not my experience. It's no, to bring your highest listening to it like it's that person speaking to you, and to really listen for the gold and get your gold. Get your gold from what you're reading. And this is the way I create my reality now, is like I look at everything and I'm like, practice that everything is my library. There's learning for me in everyone and everything. And it's not just information I'm trying to get. It's like, how do I live this? How do I take this and have it come alive in my world? So if I want to judge less, right, where am I creating the space to be forgiving of me? To be kinder to myself, not just, oh, well, let me run myself a bath and swear at myself mentally in my head while I'm having a bath. That's self-care, right? It's no, the love part is where do I create the love for myself differently? And that can look different for everyone. That might be a nice walk for you where you're slowing yourself down. It could be you're meditating. It could be, hey, it's okay just to give myself a break. Sometimes I hug myself, or I imagine myself hugging a younger me. Because I'm like, oh, that's where it's at. That's the real forgiveness. And so I'd say is with anything, if you look in this direction at all at anything or listen for it, is to bring a different listening to it. Because then you'll hear the gold in a different way. And you could read the same book 17 times and be a different person every time. And that's what I do, is I'm not trying to win the book Olympics. I want to read things to live what I'm learning. And I think that's the difference, is I used to hoard information. Now I take the information. It's like, well, how can I make this be a living transformation in me?
Yeah, and it's so, so important what you mentioned, because I think this is one of the biggest difference. As we begin to wrap up as well, I wanted to share what Rajni shared with me last year, which was you can have the best intention. So I had the best intention to become a coach and help clients. And I came across Rajni's post, which was like, you can be there creating your ideal client. What do they drink? What do they wear? Where do they live? And I was really trying to figure out how can I serve people and who can I serve. And when I came in contact with Rajni, basically it was saying, if you want to serve people, get out there. Like Nike says, just do it, then send me this information to transformation. And that's what we were saying, not winning the book Olympics, but actually, hey, what do I want to do? And do it. Because often we can get caught in this information, and I'm guilty of this. I'm collecting so much information. I'm like a learner, but I'm not transforming it, right? And so this is that distinction that's so powerful for me, and I think everyone listening will benefit from your wisdom on this.
Yeah, gold. I love that. I love the way you've just articulated that. Thank you.
Yeah. So just as we wrap up in the last few minutes, I think one of the things that was very inspiring to me was that the way you were able to build this entrepreneurship, this business, through all of the challenges, through all of the difficulties that you mentioned, but connecting to your inner self, was that you're able to form deep relationships with people. Because it's one thing to, go off away on the mountaintop and preach about this stuff, but you're actually like committed in a community, in a marriage, with your family as well, having great friendships. And I know it's a lot to cover in, last few minutes of this. But what's really the key for you to slow down and take this to practice in your relationships?
I think it follows on from what we've just spoken about. And I can give an example, a tangible one. I used to have the judgment that I'm not a present wife. And so when I had the thought, I'm not a present wife, and I believed it, I would then judge myself for not being present. And guess what the result was? I wasn't present. Right. So I was in this spiral of creation, being like, well, I'm going to keep beating myself up for not being present. And I was less present as a result. So I was literally creating it. And so when I stopped judging myself for that, it was like, well, I am a present wife. And my declaration is I'm an outrageously loving wife to my sexy, quirky, hilarious, patient, and loving husband, Amit. I am that I listen to and love Amit from the depths of my soul, the depths of which deepen each time I speak this. And that to me is like, oh, nothing else matters when I'm with him. Let me be with him. Let me just show up. And it's not a technique, right? Like it's coming from a place of deep love. And I think that you used my favorite C word, commitment. It's a commitment to it. It's a commitment to service. It's a commitment to being of service. It's not to getting something. It's not to getting this. And like I said, I've got goals and aspirations, and I want to create this in my business and all that. But when it boils down to it, it's like, yeah, the business is a vehicle for this mission, this vision. The business is a vehicle for the vision I have for I want to serve humanity. I want to raise the consciousness of humanity in the work that I do. And that starts at home. It starts how I show up as a wife. It starts how I show up as an auntie, as a daughter, as a sister. Like if there's mess here in my home, then there's going to be mess in everything I create. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect, but it's the daily practice of being and creating myself as a present wife, as a loving daughter, as loving myself first and foremost, that allows me to give freely of my time and energy without, hey, I'm better than you and you need to come on this course because you need to fix it. I don't want that for anyone. I want them to see they're whole and complete. And I think that's it. It's like the work starts in the four walls of our own home. You know, it starts in us, these walls, and then it starts in our homes, and then it radiates beyond that. And so my biggest thing is getting really clear on my commitments. I used to be committed to a lot of things. And now it's like, no. There's commitment to me. There's my husband, my family, my friends, my clients, my business. And if I have this really clear for me, I don't need to be committed to loads of things, but I know what I'm committed to and I know what I'm not. And that's been for maybe a conversation for another time, but the real feeling of being able to say no, because my no's, my yeses mean nothing if my no's mean nothing. All right. So like when my no's are powerful and they're clear and they're with love, then my yeses are like, I'm all in, I'm here. And so I think this is the thing around commitment for me is it stems from that.
And that ties together so beautifully all the layers of the self-holding, the self-compassion, you creating the other person, but again, not just being a technique, but seeing the other person for who they are and as a stepping stone to come out of your program. And then again, the intention and the commitment, really the power of our human mind. And then also the ability just to step out of that too. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for sharing that from your heart. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners, to the people watching who are on this journey, are starting this journey and are resonating, like you said at the start, with you and shaping with your reality?
Yeah, genuinely just give yourself infinite slack. Give yourself another chance. Forgive yourself. Like it's okay. And that you're not the only one experiencing what you're experiencing, even if you think you're alone. And I really want to acknowledge you, Jhoty, for creating this dialogue, this platform, because this is service. Whoever's listening to this and they have an insight, they have a shift, like that's impactful. And that's because you're willing to create from a place of, hey, this is not about me, it's about the we. And so I really want to acknowledge you for creating that.
Thank you so much. And like we say in our background, we always do things in Charity Kala or high spirit, and also with the element of playfulness. So, with
Mm.
that, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Oh, yeah. So if you want to connect with me, if you have questions about anything I've shared, any reflections, I'm so open for you sharing with me. I would, in fact, I'd love it. So Facebook, my name is Rajni Ghir. So you can look me up on there. Ghir is Ghir. I'm sure Jhoty's going to put some of the details in the I forgot what it's
Description
called.
below. I'll put it
There you
below.
go. Yeah, he's going to put it in there. So you can find me on there. So if you search my name, I'm the only Rajni Gear on the planet as far as Facebook's concerned. And Instagram is at shape, as in the shape, triangle, circle, square, at shape_coaching. So I'm there too. So you can drop into the DMs and send me a message. And I'd love, honestly, love to hear from you.
Thank you so much again. And hopefully have you on again sometime and talk
I'd
more.
love to.
Thank you, Rajni, and thanks everybody for watching. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.